Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to a remanufacturing section discussion put on by the Remanufacturers Industry Council. Today, we're going to talk about the remanufactured office furniture section. We've got three panelists. We got a great group here. This is the fourth webinar in a series that the RIC has basically established to explore different sectors and what remanufacturing is all about. You should be able to gain some insight into what our sector is all about and learn how they're similar and how we have many, many parallel paths. What we're going to talk about today is you're going to hear a unique overview of the office furniture sector. You're going to understand the unique challenges and opportunities for remanufacturing of office furniture. And you're going to see actually office furniture case studies in action. I do want to point out a couple of things, and I want to thank the RIC for actually putting us in this time slot. Last week on Thursday, we had Remand Day. You see on the left-hand side of the screen. And actually, we all know that, that was last Thursday. And this Saturday on the 22nd is Earth Day. So it couldn't be more timely that we're basically sandwiched in between those. I do want to let you know that the Remanufacturers Industry Council was established as a unified voice for the entire industry. And we have remanufactured standards that are available at www.remandcouncil.org. And we have a World Remand Conference that's actually coming up, and that's going to be held in Springfield, Missouri. That is going to be held basically in, just give me a second here. I've got something blocking that. But in Springfield, Missouri, it's going to be held November 7th through the 9th, 2023. And we have a number of our remanufacturing partners that are actually based in that. That's a wonderful location to have the World Remand Conference. First time we're going to hold it there. We would welcome any and all of you to basically sign up and attend. It's a chance to network with your peers. Okay, so that said, we are going to talk a little bit about housekeeping now. All right, so with housekeeping, today, this webinar is scheduled to last approximately 90 minutes, including Q&A. We'd like all participants muted to enable speakers to present without interruption. And it's important for everybody that's on today's call to understand you can submit questions via the Q&A feature during the presentation, and they will be answered during and at the end of the presentation. Following the webinar, you will also receive a short survey. Very important that we get your feedback to understand how we're doing and what we all understand you would like to see us do in the future. There will also be a recording to the link of this webinar that will be sent to you via email tomorrow. So if you'd like to basically revisit it or take a look back at some of the highlights of our presentation, you'll be able to do so. So without further ado, I'd like to basically show you the panelists here. And the panelist for today's discussion is Mr. Doug Pilgrim from Davies office, Mr. Bill Adams from Reimagine Office Furnishings, and Mr. Paddy Hobohm from Space Incorporated. And I'd like to have each one of those individuals, if they could. Oh, by the way, my name is Bill Davies. I was the founder of Davies office. And also a past chair of the RIC. I'd like to have each one of the panelists introduce themselves, and then we're going to start off and launch the presentation by Mr. Pilgrim. I would note one thing, Mr. Pilgrim has another presentation at 10:45, so he will be presenting for the first 20 minutes with a 10-minute Q&A or 7-minute Q&A, and then he'll drop off the call. He will be followed up by Mr. Adams and then Mr. Hobohm. Okay, Mr. Pilgrim, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. That's thanks, Bill. And I have to say, I love it when you call me Mr. Pilgrim. You have to do that from now on going into the future. I love it when my boss calls me that. Doug Pilgrim, I'm Davies office. I'm a business development manager. I'm also sustainability advocate for the company. I'm a lead AP and a well AP.
Okay, how about you, Bill?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Adams. I I'm president of Reimagine Office Furnishings in Tampa, Florida. My partner in that enterprise is my wife, Joni Adams, and I'm very happy to be here today. I am a brand new member of the RIC, and Bill has inducted me quite nicely as a presenter today. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. I know you did a great job. How about you, Paddy?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And I want to thank everybody for being on the call today. But Paddy Hobohm, president of Space Incorporated. We are headquartered out in Midland, Michigan, with a location out in Alexandria, Virginia. And we are also a women-owned small business.
Thank you, Patty. So we're going to launch this now with a presentation by Doug Pilgrim. It's going to be an overview of the office furniture sector to include history and current state of affairs. So Doug, if you could start sharing your screen, thank you very much.
Okay, and if you could, please tell me when you see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Excellent. So I want to thank the RIC for giving us an opportunity today to tell our story here at Davies and also remanufacturing of office furniture. It's great to have this group together. I am actually broadcasting high atop the DCU Center here in downtown Worcester for the New England Facility Management Show that's coming up. So I'm hopefully I've got a great signal. Any delays, please warn me beforehand so I just don't go on without anybody telling me. So for all of you who are new to the office furniture and the transitions office furniture that's been going on, this will kind of give you a quick idea of that story. There's a lot of great furniture that's being made out there, especially A-grade furniture. And this A-grade furniture doesn't wear out. We'd like to say it uglies out, it doesn't wear out. And when we mean by uglies out, we mean that furniture is basically fashion. It's all done by whims of trying to look new and current and contemporary in the office environment. And because of that, perfectly good furniture gets thrown away. But let's take a look at the history of that real quick. I'll just go through these slides real quick for you. This is from the 50s and the early 60s, this photograph. This was known as a bullpen. And this was a great place if you were a manager. You know, you can imagine the noise and what was going on back there, trying to get work done. But almost when you look at it, it's the first really collaborative office place. During the early latter part of the 50s and right through the 60s, we saw this German influence by the Quickborn Group for the open office landscaping. It was called Brollenschrift is their name. What they started to do is to rearrange furniture within an open office plan around functions. So accounting was next to accounting and marketing so that people could easily communicate. And they looked at a more organic approach to the office. They started to divide the spaces with plants. It was George Nelson and Robert Probst who started to design furniture for Herman Miller to go into this open office furniture plan. But didn't take long for us Americans to complain about this. And Robert Probst came up with an idea of dividing up the area using panels. And this is the original systems furniture. This is Action Office by Herman Miller, and started to place furniture on a vertical plane as opposed to an open office, so we can cut down some of the noise. But it still was a collaborative. The panels were connected at 120 degrees. But it didn't take long for somebody to take a look at that and realize, you know what, if we go 90 degrees, we have less kit parts, it makes more sense from a facility standpoint. Let's try to do this. And this is the dawn of the cubicle, or as we affectionately call it, the cube farm. And this went on and did very well in the office place until about the latter part of 2000, right up into the pandemic. And then we started to see collaborative office furniture. And this was a smaller footprint, so CFOs loved it. It was able to fit more people in an area. The idea here was that millennials were supposed to like this over the regular plan, but 20% of the people out there are inverts, so it didn't necessarily work for them. But they were able to get more people in per square foot, and there was some more communication. So during this period that the collaborative office popped up, we're looking at 2010 to about 2020, right before the pandemic. And we're looking at about $120 billion worth of office furniture that was manufactured. That's those are net numbers by the manufacturer. Those numbers are supplied by the Business and Institutional Furniture Manufacturers Association, BIFMA. It just rolls right off the tongue. And about a third of that, about 35%, are the panels and the work surfaces and the bookcase and the file cabinets, product that really allows itself to be remanufactured rather easily. So when we take a look at what's happening, though, is that every time there is a change in the fashion, and there's a change in the style going up until the pandemic, perfectly good furniture is going to the landfill. So the EPA estimates that and these are 2019 numbers, that 24 billion pounds worth of office furniture is being produced. And about 81% of all office furniture goes to the landfill after one use. So after 3, 5, 7 years, it doesn't fit the aesthetic of the office, and it goes to the landfill. And less than 1% of that is remanufactured or refurbished or used again. So you can see now that this is an economic waste, and this is also an environmental disaster. And now we have the pandemic. And the trends that we're seeing now are work from home, hybrid working, and hoteling. So now employees are coming in, they're sharing work surfaces, they don't need as much real estate right now. They're coming in 3 days a week, coming in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Companies now are realizing that they don't need the footprint that they have from a real estate standpoint. CFOs going, if these people are not going to be here most of the time, 2 days a week, then why do we need all this real estate? So they're cutting back on the real estate, and now we're looking at about 30 to 40% of office furniture is redundant. So forget about the fashion changes that we talked about leading up to the pandemic. Now we have a situation where large corporations are moving out of their lease space. So what's the alternative for a corporation? Well, first thing is denial, right? Your furniture winds up in a back room or it gets put into a warehouse. Very, very expensive alternative for furniture that you're probably not going to use again in the future. Or it gets downcycled or scrapped, or in the worst case, as we're seeing, it's going straight to the landfill. So there's got to be another choice for that. So we're looking at landfills, looking at downcycling. Sometimes you can donate this product to a charity. And unfortunately, the charities already have enough furniture. They're also going to a hybrid situation right now, and you might not have the furniture that they're looking for. And then the best choice is from a sustainability standpoint, or from an economic standpoint, is to reuse, refurbish, or remanufacture. So what is remanufacturing office furniture? And what are the economic and environmental advantages of doing that? So first of all, there is an ANSI standard for remanufacturing office furniture, as there is for everybody else that's on part of the Remanufacturing Industry Council. That means we're going to take our product and we're going to bring it back to like new condition or better than new condition. If you look at office furniture, how does this work? Well, the old furniture becomes our core material. And this gives us, so if we're looking at the panels, we're looking at we take those back in, we tear them down to the core, to the frame, and we actually change the dimensions of the product. We take a look at wardrobe units, 4 and 5 drawer lateral files, or box files, and we cut those down and we reimagine them into new products, shorter wardrobe units, 2 and 3 drawer lateral files, and we can take box files and we can turn them into mobile pedestals. We can powder coat with a no VO seating, so we can change our colors right on the line with more resistant and scratch resistant paints, powder coats. And this gets away from paints and gets away from the scratching that goes on and the volatile organic compounds that those incorporate. We also can use CNC machines to take old work surfaces and cut them down and repurpose them and relaminate those to the new dimensions of a project that's going on. And we have access to 85% of all the textiles that are on the marketplace. Now, major OEMs, the major manufacturers, they have proprietary fabrics, but they're getting their textiles from the same mills that the remanufacturers do. So those are open line products, but those textiles are being created to the same standards, commercial standards, as the open line products that the remanufacturers are using. And remanufacturers now have a kind of a farm to table approach with our clients in that we have direct communication. So a remanufacturer will oversee the decommissioning of the product and the shipping back to the factories. They will design the space, AutoCADs, and do an inventory analysis. We then project manage the shipping and the delivering and the installing. So if you were to work on a project with a normal OEM, there are about 6 to 7 people between you and the people who are actually manufacturing the furniture. With this business model, you have a direct contact with the people who are making the product. And this is fantastic on projects because any changes that are made along the way, any weather events that come up, everyone is on the same page. And as one of my clients said, we love working with you guys. There's only one throat to choke. So because we have the ability of taking the old furniture in, we can now start to use some very, very interesting programs. You can leverage some interesting sustainability programs. So we're starting to look at, we're starting to border on what's known as a circular economy. Circular economy is a term that was first started by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation out of Europe, out of England. And what they're looking at there is the ability of keeping products, no matter what it is, out of the landfill and get extended use out of it, and designing products so that it stays out of the landfill for extended use so it can be refurbished, remanufactured, and repaired. So if we look at the traditional model on the left, it's a take, make, and throw away type of business model. Not very efficient. Great if you're a manufacturer, just want to obsolescence and get it go through. But from a circular economic model, you have to be able to refurbish and remanufacture to get those products back out in the marketplace like new. So one of our programs is a sustainable product exchange. So when the product comes back to us, we're going to give our clients a credit for the furniture that comes back. That credit is then used for furniture that's going back to the client. So in this business model, we're not remanufacturing the client's furniture for them. We're giving them value for their old furniture because that's our raw materials. That's our core. And then we're applying that value to the furniture that they want for the new space. So there's no downtime for our clients. It's an immediate, theoretically, Friday we can go in and harvest their old furniture, have it all set up over the weekend, and Monday they'd have their whole new restacked environment. Another interesting program, though, is our sustainable banking program. Now, what we're doing here is when our clients are downsizing, or they're closing an office, or they're emptying a warehouse of what is probably their old standard, we give them credit for that product, but that credit sits on our books, and that credit can now be applied to future project or future projects anywhere around the country. So it gets our clients out of the warehousing business. We get rid of product that's obsolete and their old standard, and we get them back into product that they're looking for their projects. So once again, if we take a look at this, from left to right here, we're taking that old furniture in, we're abracadabra, we're giving them value that they wouldn't get on today's marketplace because there's a glut of furniture coming out, and it's being applied to a remanufactured furniture, which is basically new furniture, except, we're just not mining the ore and smelting the steel. So the furniture comes in, they're getting today's positive value for that. It's getting applied to the product that they're using. There's some very good flexible brand conversion that can go on, which we'll talk about. And there's also very strong sustainability reasons for doing this. So right off the top, if we're able to implement this program with our clients, they're looking from anywhere to a 30 to 40% savings compared to buying new furniture. So economically, there's a significant savings. Plus, there's a savings because they're getting out of the warehousing business. And we're now able to exchange their brands. So let's say, for instance, they were standardized on Miller in the past, but their new standardization may be Steelcase or may be Hayworth. We can take the old product in, we give them a credit on that old product, and that credit's applied to the product of their standards or the product that they want going forward. So the remanufacturer in this case becomes the Geneva of office furniture. We're magical. We're taking their old product in, and once again, abracadabra, we're coming back with exactly the space that they're looking for and the product that they're looking for. And the client isn't sacrificing anything by doing this. All of our products have lifetime warranties. We can either repair the old furniture, because that's kind of what we do, or we can come back in with replacement furniture for them, for remanufactured replacement furniture. So from an economic standpoint and from a brand standpoint, and from lifetime warranties, clients are rather secure in working with us, but we can go beyond that now because we have third-party verification in what we're doing from a sustainability standpoint. And this is so important now that we're looking at ESG reporting to the SEC, when sustainability is driving a lot of the projects that are out there. These metrics are so important. So first, right off the top, we're BIFMA level certified, level 2. So if you know about LEED, LEED is to the built environment in terms of sustainability reporting. It's kind of like a scorecard that you punch off. And level is the same thing. So BIFMA, which is if you recall, that's the Business and Institutional Furniture Manufacturers Association. They set the contract standards across the board for contract manufacturers to make sure they meet that level. And BIFMA, we actually have people that come onto a site and say, yes, you're doing this correctly, you're doing that correctly, and we can then do our reporting, and then it becomes certified. So that means that it's third party on this coming visiting our facilities and auditing us. It's not us just saying we're sustainable. We actually have to prove it, and we proved it with 9 different product lines from Steelcase, Herman Miller, Knoll, and Hayworth. So so this is really big for us. But we also had the Gelisandro Institute of Sustainability do a, once again, third-party evaluation of what we're doing on site from a life cycle assessment. So a life cycle assessment is something that's out there in sustainability. You look at the total life of a product on what's energy that's used and CO2 that's generated. So we were able to throw the dice on this one because you never know what's going to come up. And right off the top, from a global warming standpoint, oh, sorry, fire engines in the background. I think the cops are after me. Let me put my windows up, everybody. My apologies. So right off the top, what we're looking at here from a global warming impact is we're looking at the materials and the process and the energy, and we're looking at a 17, 19, and 7% savings, footprint compared to a new manufacturer. So that's significant when we're talking about CO2, but even more significant than that is when we go beyond and we take a look at beyond just climate change, but ozone depletion. We look at pollution of the soil, pollution of the water, right across the board. Remanufacturers sit on less than a 20% footprint compared to a new manufacturer. And this is significant, and this is hard information that goes right into the sustainability reporting of our clients. So if we take a look at this slide right here, this is actually the reporting for one of a major corporation that we work with, that we supply them on an annual basis. So they get their energy savings, landfill avoidance, CO2 reduction, and natural resource savings compared to a new manufacturer. So this is significant to them, and they think it's very important. As a matter of fact, it's significant to a lot of our clients. What you're seeing right here, we did a large project with Con Ed in Manhattan. They were so enthusiastic about their sustainability reporting that they had us do a mural in their facilities and at the One Irving Place in Manhattan, because they feel that this is important to their employees. They feel this is important for employee retention and employee attraction. So it's a good thing for them, and it's easily given to our clients. If you're working on a LEED certified project, there are some low hanging fruit because you're using a remanufacturer or a refurbisher in terms of furniture reuse and design flexibility. If we're looking at building disclosure, the life cycle assessments go right to that. So all that reporting helps in pursuing it. Resourcing of local materials that we can show where the furniture comes from, and also all the product that comes to us is considered construction waste. So it's a real benefit for our clients to be working with us. We're also part of the Remade Institute. This is an organization that's put together by the DOE. We are one of the founding partners of that group. We're very proud of that. I was able to attend one of those events just recently down in DC. I have to tell you, I felt like I was swimming at the deep end of the pool, all scientists and their white papers, but it's a very interesting team, and we're proud to be part of that. So the advantages of remanufacturing is the verified third-party metrics that can go right into ESG reporting and corporate sustainability reporting. There's an economic reason for going with a remanufacturer in terms of saving money compared to new. And also, which I haven't mentioned, and what we've been finding is you can avoid supply chain issues. We've been doing very well in turning product around in 4 to 5 weeks, whereas some of the major manufacturers are being very disappointing their clients very much, because sometimes they're out months and months, and they're not really telling their clients the truth on when they're going to be receiving their furniture. So that's a big part of working with a U.S. remanufacturer. So just a quick couple of case studies here, just to kind of give you an idea of what we can do. This is a large national bank. We came into them 20 years ago. We took their A-grade furniture out of there. It was so good, our remanufactured furniture, that they can't tell the difference between us and the new. We were able to use their existing surplus, get that out of their lives, able to trade it and exchange it for product that they needed. And we came back in with completely remanufactured furniture. On those projects, we're working with them. They're saving between 30 and 50%. Plus, they're getting the sustainability reporting that they're looking forward to. This is Colgate, this Pall Mall. This is in Manhattan. This is 300 Park Ave. This was a project that was driven by the architect. They had a vision that they wanted to go with the space. We could do things with Herman Miller that Herman Miller couldn't even do with their own furniture. So in the circumstance you're looking right here in this little picture, you're seeing veneer that's butted up. You're seeing 90-degree glass. Really, on this project, we were able to do things that were really unbelievable. We were able to save the client 13% compared to Herman Miller on this project, on a project they were discounting so heavily they wanted it in the worst way. But because we were so good at what we did, the architect went with us. And then on top of that, they were able to achieve LEED Gold standard for the project. And this is Geico down in Texas. So this is the before shot. This is not what our furniture looks like. So they moved 2,000 people out of one building across to another space. And so in this project here, what we did is we started to take furniture out of their warehouse in Maryland, 2 floors worth. We then remanufactured to the new specs. And then we brought that furniture down. We started to install it, and they moved 2 floors across from Dallas to Richardson. And then we would then take the furniture out of Richardson, remanufacture that furniture for them, and get them set up. So there was a lot going on here, a lot of moving parts. And when we were done, we got 2,000 people across. And this is the call center you're seeing right here. It was on time, it was on budget. There was only a 5-line item punch list on this project, which is something of this scope with this many moving parts, it's just unbelievable. And we're able to give them the third-party verified metrics of what they were looking for on their project. So, there's a lot of good reasons to go with us. I'm not going to go any further on this. I don't want to take up too much time for everybody, but it's a money saver. And it's by far the best sustainable choice for a project, and lead times are not an issue. And that's it for me, Bill.
Hey, Doug, I want to thank you so much. That's a lot in a short period of time. And I know you got to drop off here by 10:35. I have a question, Doug, I'd like you to answer. And then if I could get Bill Adams and Paddy to also respond. And that is, as we all move on from the impact of COVID, can you tell us how it's changed and or altered the office furniture sector? Now, Doug, I know you touched on hybrid work, real estate reduction. Has COVID had a positive or negative impact on this sector?
Well, yes, and so yeah, it's I would say depends on your perspective. Now, for us remanufacturing here, it has been very positive because we're the ones that can give a positive value for the old furniture. We're the ones that can help empty out those floors when they're going to hotels, as long as we're involved with the restack of the projects going forward. But what we're seeing across the board, and anybody who picks up the news right now knows, major corporations are getting out of real estate. They're lessening their footprint. This is having putting major pressure on commercial real estate right now. And as bad as the furniture glut was prior to the pandemic and going to the landfill, we're seeing worse than that right now. To the point where Bill and I think we were on a conference call with the state of Oregon not more than 4 months ago, and they're saying that they're not even accepting any more office furniture in their landfill. They just don't want to see it. So remanufacturing furniture is a great choice for clients to be able to address post-COVID.
Thank you, Doug. Hey, Bill Adams, you want to take a shot at the same question?
I think what we are seeing across the country is that reduction. And so what the issue that we're seeing is that like workstations are coming out in great volume from these spaces that we're decommissioning. And when we redesign the new spaces, there might be a third of the workstations that they're needing. And so a lot of the space that they're doing is in upholstered goods to create collaborative areas. And so there's not the supply on the Reman side of the collaborative furniture. So we are having to blend the remanufactured stations with newer furniture for those collaborative areas.
Super. Hey, Patty, I'll give you one shot from your perspective.
Sure.
Same question on COVID.
To give you a little bit of a different angle, what I'm hearing from small business owners as well as some of these corporations is really kind of three parts. One, they want to earn people's commute coming into the office. That's been extremely important. They also want a return on their investment, which is typically their building, as well as looking at it differently. So they want to be able to have some design flexibility and giving their organization the ability to pivot quickly. So those, I guess, would be the main three things that I've been hearing lately, Bill.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask one more question so we can let Doug drop off. And I want him to touch on it. We hear a lot about, and Doug, you touched on it briefly in your presentation, the term circular economy. Can each of you just comment on how it is impacting change in your organization? Real quick, Doug, because I know you got to drop off.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. So, so certainly, as I said before, it's the Ellen MacArthur really introduced this lexicon to the whole sustainability conversation, and so we see it all over the place now in terms of right across the board in the sustainability part of our business. So. Circularity lends itself into ESG reporting. ESG reporting, if anybody knows, BlackRock really drove that in terms of demanding that for a lot of the corporations to supply that with their the SEC reporting for their stocks reporting. And because they have to do that type of stock reporting, they have to include ESG in that now, and they can't greenwash it. So this is really some hard data that really lends itself to that part. And circular economy is where we are, where all of our refurbishers, all of our remanufacturers are, the ability to take a product and extend its life and keep it out of the landfill.
Hey, Doug, I'm going to let you go, and I want to thank you so much for contributing and participating in today's discussion. Good luck with your next presentation. Bill Adams, do you want to touch base on the circular economy real quick?
The effect on Reimagine office furnishings is we have engaged third parties recently to help us fit into that, to verify how circular we are to our clients. And so a lot of effort and time is going into participating and data crunching with those organizations to see where we stand so that we can show and prove how circular we are.
And I know that's going to come up in your presentation, Bill. I had a preview of that. So I'll ask Patty to comment on it before we ask you to make your presentation, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. I am seeing the circular concept being extremely important, not just inside the federal government, but in some of these larger corporations. And I am starting to see some of these larger corporations incorporate the circular aspect into their own products and services. I will say that, being able to articulate the value of circularity and how it aggregates and compounds the metrics over time has been extremely powerful.
Thank you, Patty. I know you touched base on that in your presentation as well. So if we could segue, Bill, and you could take control of the screen and give us an overview. And we want to talk a little bit about the overview of today's marketplace and the impact and understanding the unique challenges and opportunities that are out there that have an influence on us all as remanufacturers in this section.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So that is my partner in our business, my wife, Joni. And we are, like I said, in Tampa, Florida. And so challenges and opportunities in the office furniture remanufacturing sector is what I'm going to touch on today. But first, I thought what I would do is kind of give people an idea of how you become an office furniture remanufacturer. So I'm going to give you the history of our company and how we got started and how we are here today. Being a presenter. So in 1988, after Joni and I moved from the Cayman Islands, as I was a steel case dealer there, with all the education from Mother Steelcase. And Joni worked for a Big 8 accounting firm. We moved to Tampa and bought an office supply store. Just decided that we're going to move from Paradise and go be an entrepreneurs. And real quickly Hurricane Hugo hit St. Thomas. And a friend of mine, it was head of the Eastern Caribbean banking group for Chase Bank. And he said, Bill, we need some used furniture real quick to come in and set up our branches in 2 weeks. So that's how we got into the pre-owned office furniture world. And then 7 years later, after companies kept asking us to redo the furniture and add fabric and a different paint color, all of a sudden we started a new company called Refurbished Office Furniture. Shortly thereafter, always wanting to gain knowledge into this really fledgling business and enterprise, remanufacturing office furniture at that time. While it was happening, it wasn't a large scale enterprise across the United States. So one of the grandfathers of our business was Bill Graytech, who was a contemporary, I might add, of Bill Davies. I didn't know Bill, but I had been introduced to Bill Graytech in St. Louis, and he had a massive remanufacturing operation. And it's there we discussed how to get these people together so we could share ideas. And that's what we called the Office Furniture Recyclers Organization. And then as we grew, all of a sudden, we get our first $1 million project, which was outstanding. We weren't set up for it. We convinced someone to take a chance on us for about 700 workstations. And the rest of as they say, is history. And we very successfully completed that project and became known as a remanufacturer. And one of the steps to our getting to be, called a remanufacturer was UL. We had an electrical inspector in the Tampa Bay area that was very, very into UL labels, meaning that we could not take a Steelcase or a Herman Miller panel, remanufacture it, put it in a new space with the old UL label. So he kind of forced our hand, and today we're one of the few UL certified factories, office furniture factories in the United States, because of that. So we print our own labels, and UL comes in 4 times a year, unannounced, to make sure that our processes meet their standards. And then in 2006, I was so into the collaboration of all the remanufacturers and people in the pre-owned furniture business. I became president of the Office Furniture Recyclers Association, and have done that for the last 17 years, because I felt that sharing information with us remanufacturers and our pre-owned brethren, that it was very important that we work together. In 2008, the economy tanks, and our company begins decommissioning offices nationwide. Doug touched on that. It's what's kind of happening now, but back then it was just as bad, maybe worse than it is today. And so that started us off on another movement to where we work pretty much in every state in the union, decommissioning offices. In 2007, ROF rebrands from Refurbished Office Furniture to Reimagine Office Furnishings, and then opened up a brand new, really cool showroom that when folks walked in, people in our area said it's the greatest showroom in all of the Southeast United States. And the reason that we did that is to really kind of show people that remanufactured furniture is cool. 2020, COVID changes the office world forever. In 2020, we sold, and I'm sure Davies as well, we sold millions and millions of dollars worth of plexiglass screens to our large corporate clients that was never sat in. They wanted to provide barriers to make people feel comfortable. It never happened. People stayed out of work, and we are now bringing in a lot of plexiglass back into our factory. And then recently, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, we joined the Remanufacturing Industries Council. I'm gonna touch base about office furniture recycler because it's important, because you can see at the top of the page here, we network, we learn, and we play. And that's kind of always been the mantra of the office furniture recyclers, but learning is utmost to us. So this year, I'm going to touch on some of our speakers that brought incredible value and incredible amounts of information as things change. I know when I got into the business at Steelcase, I was trained that talk to your clients about change, because the only thing for certain is change. And as you saw our history and what's going on today, that is true. So Dr. Sanjay Rishi leads all of JLL in the Americas. So underneath Sanjay are about 40,000 people. And we had the opportunity to listen to Sanjay speak for about an hour and 15 minutes. He went about 30 minutes long on his speech because there's so much to talk about. And then Sanjay, after Sanjay, our closing keynote is George Bandy. And he talked to us why companies need to think more strategically about their environmental impact. And George is relatively famous in this world. He is the former chairman of the board of the United States Green Building Council. Most recently, his past job was head of worldwide circular economy for Amazon, and then currently as chief sustainability officer for Fiber Industries. But George is at Fiber to change the world, the environmental impact of the clothing industry. And it's a very, very big undertaking, but he's the man that can do it. And so he excited our audience to no end about the opportunities before us in the remanufacturing of office furniture. So we've talked, and Doug talked about some of this, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with this chart that the physical office is shrinking. So this is the square foot per office worker. And you can see in 2010, it became the highest level ever, about 210 square feet per office worker. And then as that benching and the footprint of workstations kept going down, it caught momentum up until the pandemic, and you can really see where the pandemic hit. And so the square foot per worker went up big time at the pandemic, because nobody was in the office and people were using a lot more space and spreading out. But as we get back, you can see how the leases are changing. So as leases terminate, companies are taking less space and doing more hoteling. So per worker, that number is gone down, into the 170, between 170 and 180 currently. But the question is, what's going to happen from here, and how far does that go? But I think the trend happening now is more and more people are getting back to the workspace, because companies are doing a good job of giving them what they want. So during COVID, to get people back, there were large organizations doing surveys of office workers, and they were everywhere. But the number one thing that people wanted was to get away from the benching that you see on the screen. They wanted privacy. They wanted head down privacy to be able to do their jobs. And that's a gross simplification. But because of the amount of data that we got, is evident that most people wanted that privacy. So now they want a place like this to be able to sit down and do heads down work and get away. And this is a hoteling office that nobody lives at, but is shared by executives in this company. However, through the survey and talking to business owners and leaders, the best place to develop a strong culture is in the office. So a lot of effort, a lot of design is going into the office to help create a place that people want to be. So that's why we talk about the amenities in the workplace and in and around the workplace. So this is a bar, a cafe bar, and a real bar at night inside an office building where, we're trying to get people back to the office and giving them a place that exudes energy and is way better than working from their dining room table, or if they're lucky, a nice office in their home, and where they can collaborate with people. This happens to be in my town, Tampa, Florida. There is a work play atmosphere here in a place called Water Street. And this was coming out of the ground. This is a development by Bill Gates and Jeff Vinnick, a Tampa native, paired with Bill Gates to create this space that has just a ton of energy. And when this was being built, the folks in the real estate business said, nobody's going to have enough money to lease this space. Well, fast forward, the space is entirely leased because companies are really moving toward Class A space with these amenities. And so and we see these kind of areas in all cities, and I can tell you they're 100% leased because that's where people are going. So Gen Xers care greatly about their company's social and environmental footprint. And then that's exactly where the circular economy comes in. They're wanting to know, companies are wanting to know exactly, how you're making a difference, using remanufactured office furniture, and then helping their employees feel like their companies are giving back to the environment and being socially responsible. And then corporate America is hungry for products that help them reach their carbon neutral goals. You can just go online and Google all the large companies and you'll find their carbon neutral goal. And so now, remanufactured office furniture can, in our circular economy with that message, we're out now able to get into very large corporations because we can help them. And I think we talked a little bit about third-party verification. And so there's this thing called an EPD, and it goes along with an LCA. So people in remanufacturing, we know what a life cycle assessment is, and that's what we're talking about here. But an EPD is a more formal document that is going to become standard for all new products to have an EPD, or environmental product declaration, that will give its life cycle assessment. And so that's what we are doing now to be able to drill down in the products that we remanufacture every day so that we can have an EPD and then really calculate and help our customers when it becomes to ESG. ESG is becoming a big deal in big companies. George Bandy, who was our speaker at the Office Furniture Recyclers Convention, spoke the majority of the time about ESG, and he was so excited for us. George had spoke at our convention one time before, and he knew us, and so he was so excited to come and share the opportunities that lay before office furniture remanufacturers. So what has this meant to us as far as remanufacturing? So we're going to remanufacture bigger cubicles. We're going to have cubicles that are going to have more privacy. We're going to have cubicles that are going to have sit-to-stand in them. We're going to manufacture cubicles that are going to be hoteling cubes. So that's changed for us. So a lot of the taller panels, we weren't seeing a whole lot of that prior to COVID. And then high performance seating is a big deal. Remanufacturing these really great office chairs, they're iconic brands like Herman Miller Aeron and the Steelcase Leap and the Hayworth Zodi chair. These are chairs just like cubicle, they'll get ugly, but their components and their bones are so structurally sound that they're easy to remanufacture. And in seating, high performance seating, the savings are even greater for the companies. You're looking at 50 to 60% savings on buying remanufactured seating. And, I talked briefly about my answer on, what's changed. We're going to have to learn in our factory how to reupholster different upholstered items, fully upholstered. We're seeing a lot of the tall height separations in upholstered goods, like the chair you see or the lounge piece you see on the right there. And then these round pieces. And anyway, so we're in the process now of learning how to reupholster these goods as they come out of these offices and how to be able to help them put those back in. We just recently won a very large job with a Fortune 500 company because of our ability to reuse a lot of their lounge pieces in their facility, because they're extremely expensive, and the cost savings are very large when we can come in and upholster these items. So remanufacture office furniture is finally cool. So we have a huge opportunity in front of us. And so we're so happy. I know Bill is, and Paddy, that we now are being looked at by large corporations because we can now provide them with reporting that can verify the circular economy that we talk about, and then enter that into their ESG reporting. So thank you very much for allowing me to present today. I appreciate it. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Good job, Bill. Thank you so much. And you know what? You touched on a couple of things, and the one theme that resonated on your presentation and we've talked about as well is embrace change, because it's something that's a constant, right? Things always change. So you touched on ESG, you touched on climate change, decarbonization, zero waste. Those are all things people are looking for today. And it's so refreshing to basically have people approach us as a viable solution today with a sustainable movement worldwide. Now, you mentioned about the fact that you were basically looking for EPDs, and I know we did an LCA. Could you talk a little bit about how you see that benefiting you from a remanufacturing standpoint going forward to assist your client versus new? Just a quick comment on that, if you would.
Yeah, I think, anybody that looks at what we do can understand that there's environmental savings, right? But the third-party verification and all the new companies are going to be able to do it. Like we offer, and you offer a lifetime warranty on systems furniture, right? Well, they offer an EPD on their products, right? And so we have to offer an EPD on our products so that we can compare. And if we can compare, then we're really cool.
Very good. So what maybe one of the challenges from that standpoint, Bill, on an EPD, I know when we did our LCA, was to get the OEs to basically share proprietary information so we can drill down that EPD when we go back through the remand process. Would that be an accurate statement?
Very much so, but I think their hands are going to be forced by consumers, and
I would agree,
by these third parties like UL.
Perfect.
And UL Solutions Group.
I would agree. Paddy, do you want to touch on that too? When we talk about ESG, we talk about climate change, zero waste, decarb, and some of the tools that you can see that might benefit you before we segue into your presentation. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing ESG reports being instrumental for these large companies, not only to receive financial incentives, but to be prudent with the financial resources that they've received. So the great thing about these ESG reports is it's very informative on exactly what these organizations are doing. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit about a case study in my presentation on how we helped one of the Fortune 500 companies really start the documentation process, as well as look at their business drivers and allocating those with a remanufactured and circular approach.
Perfect. So this is a perfect segue, Paddy. we'd like to have you bring up and share your screen so we can talk about an overview of today's marketplace from your perspective as a dealer distributor in real world experience and include case studies. So you're up.
Absolutely. So, yeah, to reintroduce myself, Space Incorporated, we're headquartered out of Midland, Michigan, laser focused on disruptive innovation. And that's really what gets us up in the morning. So a little bit about our company. We started in 1995. We do see an opportunity right now, to Bill's point, that the timing is perfect to disrupt the entire industry. And the way that we can do that is extracting value from these existing assets on site. And from a sustainable vision standpoint, we've looked at this as creating partnerships and leveraging the capabilities of two very strong, sustainable focused companies and how we can grow. And one of the things that when I had a conversation with Bill Davies was, how can we work together to not only get this program accessible to the federal government, but to grow this program nationwide and look at it a little bit differently from a thought leadership standpoint. Just from a credibility standpoint, we've done business in every single state. We've done, a lot of federal government work, as well as a lot of large commercial clients, but all the way down to some of the smaller and medium-sized businesses. Based on the geographic location that I'm in, that is one of, that's a niche industry for us. And this program works well for all of these clients. From a capability standpoint, we're a full turnkey interior design firm and focused on relentless creativity and, like I said, disruptive innovation. So with looking at this from a shared mission standpoint, you've heard it a couple times. This furniture has been made so well that the circularity, there's a lot of value to be had in this. And from a weight standpoint, we can keep a lot of this out of the landfill. But I do think that it's important to have a conversation between highly sustainable companies on how we can work together, not only to increase the public awareness, but to really extrapolate the effect we can have on this entire industry. So I'm going to jump into two case studies for you guys, just to kind of paint a picture from a feet on the streets perspective. So the first case study, these guys are great about sharing this information. This is Hemlock Semiconductor. They're located in rural Michigan, but they have a campus of buildings that's all located in Hemlock, 30 to 40 buildings. And they've, over the years, basically added on 5 or 6 times to this plant. So it wasn't purposeful, it was reactive to the current market conditions. And last year they had to look at this and rearrange their adjacencies, which basically was creating some more efficiencies and synergies internally to get their departments organized and more so by each other. So what they did is they came to us. I worked with Stephen Holte, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer. He's their carbon counter over there and responsible for their ESG report. The great thing that he was able to do was to give us proactive information and say, hey, in the next 4 months, we're going to do 23 small projects. Here are the obstacles we need to navigate. And he kicked it over to our team to build a strategy. So because we had a densified cube farm, to Doug's point earlier, we broke down those components, and when they needed swing space, we were able to make these larger cubicles a little bit smaller and give them the opportunity to densify these spaces for a short period of time while we renovated new areas. So this worked out great. We were able to leverage the change management portion with them, but also directly affect the metrics that were important to them, which was cost avoidance, as well as keeping products out of the landfill. These guys, based on their industry, they're having a hard time attracting the young talent. And they thought that the most visible way to do this was to leverage the furniture. It's what everybody sits in, it's what everybody sees. And they were able to use this from a marketing standpoint internally and got great traction. Another aspect to this that Davies was able to really help us out was they had a swing space. So they brought in 70 additional contractors to execute on a project. they didn't know what they were going to do after year 3. So when I talked earlier about the design flexibility, we were able to leverage Davies Sustainability Exchange and give them the option after 3 years to deposit those current assets that they have, or to reimagine them and roll them back into the renovated locations. All of that was financial savings for them and allowed them to tell a little bit of a different story. So Hemlock Semiconductor was in a smaller area. This is a Fortune 500 company located in Michigan that has a nationwide footprint. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we did this with them. Firstly, we got with Bill Davies over there, and we developed a plan that not only looked at their ES&G report, but figured out that they needed some help decommissioning one of the buildings that they're renovating on their location. So we're able to talk to them high level on how decommissioning really fit their ES&G metrics, and how we could help them start the journey of not only documenting these metrics, but aggregating these minute contributions, as well as telling the story. So I worked with Bill. We were able to deposit about 105 cubicles into the sustainability bank that they're able to leverage down the road once they start updating additional locations. But we also had an opportunity to take 25 stations down to Texas, and they needed it done immediately. So we were able to take those products, send a portion of them to the Sustainability Exchange, but pick those products up, send them down to Texas, install them seamlessly, and do them as fast as we possibly could. Because at the end of the day, we're going to lead with sustainability, but we know that the important factors are going to be speed and cost avoidance for some of these larger companies until the sustainability journey really gets set for them. So you can see over here, we brought some sustainability metrics, and this was directly pulled from their ES&G report and what was important to them. So they wanted to conserve raw materials, avoid CO2 release into the environment, keep as much out of the Midland County landfill as we possibly could. We're in a small, location here, and they're heavily focused on energy savings, as well as some of their ES&G reports had procurement goals around working with women-owned small businesses. So when Bill and I were able to collaborate and build a team of not only 2 women-owned small businesses, but 2 highly sustainable companies that can help them hit their business drivers, this was a case study that got a lot of traction for these guys and made a couple of these facilities guys look like absolute rock stars. So this was a great, a great piece that we were able to do for them, as well as hitting their ES&G metrics. So this is just a quick video to show you a little bit of the capabilities. A lot of people think remanufacturing or refurbishing, you're going to get old product. This was a company called Yo & Yo. It's an accounting firm. They could have done this project however they wanted, but they wanted to leverage their sustainability story and their existing assets on site. So this was Old Hayworth Unit Group. We were able to take the old gray furniture, cut the height, give it some additional graphics, increase the access to natural light. But most importantly, we allowed Yo & Yo to take those resources and start to update their facility in a sustainable manner to impact these utilities. So we saw everything from LED lighting to increasing, the flow of the building. So the resources were allocated differently, and it was a huge sustainability success story for these guys. A lot of times too, the capabilities of this office furniture, it just needs to be reimagined. Because these have been built so well, using our design capabilities to reimagine this and look at it a little bit differently, we can create a like new or better than new product application. And then these guys were also really interested in increasing the collaboration and giving their team members a really cool place that they could not only hold team meetings, but bring friends and family after hours. So a little bit of a blended approach here with some new furniture mixed with upcycled, reupholstered furniture from their existing location. And at the end of the day, they were able to save 30 to 50% versus going all new, as well as tell just a great story to their team. So with all that being said, Bill, thank you for the opportunity, and I will kick it back over to you for Q&A.
Thank you, Patty. That was great. I'm going to go with a couple of questions that have come up in the Q&A thing. And I'm going to start with the first question was, how do we get the mid and smaller size companies that may not have the same ESG goals to drive interest in Reman office furniture? Bill Adams, I'm going to ask you to take a shot at that first.
The way we do it is we talk about their employees, their team members, because I think, with the shortage of labor, you have to use that if you can as leverage. And so as we all know, younger and younger workers are taking bigger responsibilities in organizations, I think sooner than they should, maybe in some instances, but they're there. And so these Gen Xers have a huge input into the companies as to how they behave from an environmental standpoint. So that's kind of what we remind people of, is that, your employees are really going to love the fact that this is what you're going to do it, and let us help you advertise to them.
Good. Patty, you want to take a stab at that one? How do we get mid and small size companies? You mentioned something in your case studies that may not have the same ESG goals to drive interest in Reman office furniture.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're looking at these small businesses, one, we definitely like to talk with numbers with them. The cost avoidance has always been, incentivized to small businesses, but more so, how can we compete with the large competitors in their industry and create an environment that people want to work in? But we also really do look at how we can leverage that building by creating a return on their investment and attracting people to come into it. And that's been a really great, opportunity for us to bring some thought leadership around what they can do with the building. We did do something cool recently for a small organization. They were able to consolidate into half of their location and then rent the other half out to increase, to create an ROI a little bit differently. And they were able to use remanufactured goods to do that, to match the current tenant's brand. And then when the next tenant comes in, they're able to sustainably upcycle that furniture and basically rent that furniture back to their next tenant. So almost a customized approach for them to be a landlord, which I thought was kind of a cool concept.
Good. And I'm going to take a shot from our standpoint, since Doug isn't on here, and I would agree with what both of you just said about that same question, and just take it to the next level. We're going to be able to provide as remanufacturers tools for smaller and mid-sized companies that they would not have access to by working in partnership with a remanufacturer providing these solutions. The other thing that companies, we've talked about that a second ago. We can quantify the sustainable metrics, third-party validate what they are. We can also quantify the savings. That's pretty simple. It costs less money. And the one thing that we're seeing happen more and more today, and it's not a question for this group, is scope 1, 2, and 3. If some of these companies are engaged or partnered with other companies, they've got to basically have a solution to provide for scope issues. And by working with us, they can quantify those metrics and help them establish the criteria that they need to go forward. So we see this as a win-win all the way around, not only for larger companies, but small and medium. We can also get them into major product lines that they normally couldn't afford, because with remanufacturing, they can access product on a higher end basis than they normally could afford. So, this is an ongoing thing. And I think we're in a position right now to provide a lot of solutions across the whole palette of the marketplace. Another question just came up, folks, and I'm going to ask this one. So this question, can you comment, and I would say that, can you comment on the impact of supply chain issues relevant to your sector? So Bill, I mean, Doug talked about before the impact of COVID and the glut of the market. You talked about 2008 and then recently COVID. Touch base on how you as a remanufacturer have been able to assist the marketplace with supply chain issues.
Well, the most important factor is that we have our raw materials, our core product in inventory. So then from that standpoint, from a remanufacturing standpoint, I just need fabric and our powder coat and paint. And those items have been affected, but we deal with, I don't know, 13 different fabric mills. And so we're able to find a lot of in-stock fabric, and powder has never been an issue. Paint has been an issue, but then we just powder. So I think our flexibility in being a remanufacturer it helps us a lot. And so it's actually an advantage for us to be able to supply things in some instances 3 times faster than the OEMs.
Good. Paddy, you want to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, I think that from what I've seen from a, supply chain issue and cycle time issue is that a lot of the OEs are relying on third parties to make some widgets, which can be showstoppers on these projects. So with these remanufactured goods, like Bill said, they're in-house. We're not mining the earth for raw materials, engineered it into something usable and shipping it across the country. So we've eliminated a lot of steps with the remanufacturing option.
Good. So I'm gonna answer on behalf of Davies for Doug, and I know Bill, you'd agree with this, and Paddy, we've talked about this before. Is based upon market conditions and the impact of COVID, we talk about cores in the remanufacturing industry, and cores are what we're using to rebuild and provide a solution, a remanufactured solution. So when you look at a market that has a shrinking real estate footprint, and you see excess inventories of product finding its ways to the marketplace, those cores are already here. They're not overseas. They're actually in a legacy installed base issue that you can harvest and utilize for today's solution. So what we found out, and when basically supply chain issues and some of the OEs were basically saying that their lead times were in the stratosphere. And I know, Bill, I don't know if you know, or Paddy, some of the majors basically were basically saying that their lead times were 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks. In some cases, they couldn't because they did not have a handle on supply chain logistics. I mean, there was a disruption in the supply chain. We have less of that, okay, as a remanufacturer, because the cores are domiciled right here in the marketplace, and we can access those. Would you say that's accurate, Bill? Is that the same thing you're experiencing?
Absolutely. Yeah, we even if it's not the main criteria, it's in the back of our client's mind, because they're experiencing that throughout the supplies that they need to run their businesses. And so it's imperative that we get them to our facility so that they can see the $4 million in inventory that sits there waiting to be remanufactured. Good.
Hey, Paddy, I know you had case studies on that. So how big an issue is that for your client?
They, depending on the organization, it's getting more and more important. So being able to leverage what they have, as well as transparent, accurate information. And that's been one of the critical components to these projects is with all the moving parts, when I'm dealing with Davies from a remanufacturing standpoint, we have a really transparent picture of where the parts are and where they are in the continuum. And we're able to have that conversation with the clients. So, if there is any issues, we are extremely quick to help them navigate. But I also think that if you do have issues like shipping damage or something like that, that can also be a showstopper. So when you have the access to have a remanufactured good overnighted back to you that's in stock, that has been also hugely valuable for some of these companies, especially when they have liquidated damages on getting out of an area or getting into an area.
Excellent. Okay, got another question for both you folks, and I'm going to start with Bill on this one here. Okay, it's kind of talk about supply chain and suppliers. Is all your furniture made in the U.S.? Now, you remanufacture in the U.S., we got that. If not, what about furniture you buy from overseas, such as Asian suppliers? Bill?
The majority of the Asian suppliers that we use are what we call an in-stock factories, and so that in stock in the U.S. And I would say a lot of our foreign suppliers in Asia have moved or the ones we use have moved out operations outside China to avoid that 25% tariff, and also the working conditions in China, which can fluctuate wildly based on their government. So we work a lot in Vietnam. Malaysia is a real big center for manufacturing of office furniture, and that's actually been a blessing. And so I would say that that ship has right-sized as far as a supply standpoint, probably about a year ago. So we've not had as many issues there. And so we, like Paddy said, we can be very transparent with our clients. If they need something quickly, we have the resources to get that. And if something is out of stock, we know that up front, and we'll be able to get them, another alternative.
So thank you. And Paddy, I don't know. I know that how that might impact you as a dealer distributor, because I know we work together. So I'm going to take a stab at it from a Davies standpoint. And the one thing we do offshore suppliers, not just Asian, as Bill said, you got to have a source of supply. And what we look at doing is partnering with suppliers that can provide products, parts, and pieces that are not available from the OEs at the same quality and standard that were originally made by the OEs, so that when we remanufacture something and bring it back to like new condition, that we can basically validate that it's gonna function the same way. And in the office furniture sector, and Bill and Pat, you can both touch on this. In many sectors, there's a synergy between the original manufacturer and independent remanufacturers. In the office furniture sector, there really isn't. We like to say at Davies, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. We love them because they make great stuff, and they hate us because we make great stuff, right? We remanufacture and bring it back to life. Bill, would you find that to be true?
The fact that they don't like us?
Well, yeah, there's not a good amount of synergy. I mean, in other sectors.
I understand what you're saying, and I would say yes.
Yeah.
So we have to be incredibly creative, and when things are off patent, is to find ways to create those products again, especially high wear products. There's one little thing that just recently came to our attention, is that Herman Miller is taking their iconic Aeron chair, and with their new versions have cheapened the product immensely. And so you have to find components. When you remanufacture that chair, you have to replace these pieces, or you cannot warranty it the way the manufacturer does. And but that's the thing about remanufacturing, is that we know where all their faults lie, right? We take their products apart all the time. And so that's an interesting byproduct of what we do. And so I would tell them, go back to their original design and their arm pivot, but I don't think they're gonna. But who knows? They may, because this is going to be an issue for them going forward.
Right. So we reverse engineer what they do.
Right.
There's no question about it. And Paddy, I got a question. And this has come up, and it basically crosses. It says, the question is, do we agree that, considering the definition of remanufacturing, this furniture activity is more about upcycling than remanufacturing? But before you answer that, I would say it's both. Okay, if you go back to the ANSI standard in 2021 established by RIC, and you visit our facility at Davies or Bill Adams' facility at Reimagine, you're going to see product that's completely stripped down to its core and rebuilt and warranted to like new. Now, there are solutions that are hybrid solutions that integrate a multiple number of disciplines, like reuse as is. There's some hybrid things. And Paddy, maybe you can talk about upcycling on that.
Yeah, the way we look at it, Bill, is not all the components have the same strokes to making them, ready for a project execution. So a lounge furniture piece is probably going to be more of an upcycling, just changing the upholstery. But when we do look at cubicle systems, those are definitely stripped down all the way to the low, basically to the cores, and then put through a manufacturing process that looks almost identical to the OEs. And then at the end, it's brand new. So I think it's more of depending on what asset we are currently looking at and how do we approach it. But at Space, we always weigh in the fact, does it make sense to ship it, or can we do it on site? Because a lot of the manpower is getting this in and out of the building. So a couple of the smaller items we'll look at a little bit differently, but definitely the large cubicle quantities, those are going to be fully remanufactured.
And I'm just gonna, and Bill, you want to touch on that one?
No, I think you guys covered that pretty well.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna talk to what Doug said on his slide too, and what Bill talked about in terms of the evolution of a remanufacturer. We all evolved or started somewheres, and Bill and Joni did, and Evelyn and I did. Oh, by the way, Davies is a woman-owned business too. I got to mention that so I can keep my job. But at the end of the day, it's all about, we started somewheres, and we started about reuse, we started about refurbishing, and then we morphed into a full-fledged remanufacturer. But we provide solutions that deal with all of the above for the best solution for our clients on a go-forward basis. So I just want to make sure that I address that. Now, here's a question for both of you. It says, if I am furnishing an office and want to use remanufactured furnishings, partitions, everything, where can I find it? And I know both of you say, hey, call me up. I would say, and there's one other question. I'm going to basically bundle it with that one. It says, how can individuals or very small companies purchase very small quantities of reman chairs, desk, etc.? For example, a two-person office that wants to be remodeled. Bill, you want to take a stab at that?
Certainly. And then I'm going to wear my office furniture recyclers hat, the OFR. So it's a national organization of people that deal in pre-owned office furniture, and that could be brokers that just pull things out of office spaces and then sell it to us, either in a pre-owned condition, a remanufactured condition, meaning that it's older and it needs to be taken down to its core. And they're throughout the United States. And I would say, just Google your area. And, if you want a local remanufacturer. Now, remanufacturers are a little bit rarer, but there are some really good pre-owned office furniture out there, especially today. It's coming out fast and furious. And I know everybody's heard this, but, we're getting furniture because of COVID that might be 5 years old that was only sat in for 2 years. And then you could take that, and some of it has never been sat in, and it's coming out of spaces. We just took 600 stations out of Coca-Cola that are pristine and would work well for a small office.
Thank you. Paddy, how about you?
Yeah, I think getting with the right resource for sure. What we have been successful at is doing live design. So part of the issue with some of these small companies is they need a little help with the design to make sure that it fits, and then they want to avoid as much cost while definitely looking the part. So what we do is we do live design. We would have them measure their space for us. If we're close enough, we'll pop out there for them. But that can streamline the process. And then our designers draw it as they tell us exactly how they want it, with our designers' gift and input. And then we reach out to like a Bill Davies from a remanufacturing standpoint and, give them some options based on, the size of the furniture that they want or from a pricing standpoint.
Good, thank you. I've got a question that's product specific. And it says, what percentage of your customers are asking to go from fixed height workstations to height adjustable? And how do you meet those requirements? Bill?
Let me see, what percentage in general?
What
I would
percentage of your customers are going from fixed height
Right.
workstations to adjustable height?
Yeah.
And when they do, how do you meet the requirements?
Yes, I would say in general, I would say 50%. And so we are getting on the secondary market a lot of sit-to-stands in. Issue is a lot of times sizing, the size of the frames and the size of the legs, with the depths of the tops and matching all that up. And so I would say of that 50% that we do, I would say roughly 20% of that is reman or pre-owned. The rest we still continue to buy new.
Good. Hey, Patty, how about you? What percentage of customers are going from fixed height to adjustable, and how do you meet that requirement?
Yeah, Bill, I would say that, every customer that can typically sees the advantage of a height adjustable desk just because it fits, a lot of different sizes of people. But a couple creative solutions that we've done, we can adjust the bases. We've had some 120-degree height adjustable tables that we're able to turn, into rectilinear fashion and then adding in a upcycled or remanufactured top. So that's one way to do it. If we can access the used market or the remanufactured market for height adjustable bases, that's great. But a lot of times what we'll do is we'll blend it. So we'll do a newer height adjustable base with a remanufactured top.
Good question. I'll answer that on what we do here at Davies. Pretty much the same as both of what you had responded. We're starting to see the legacy installed base of height adjustable units coming back into the marketplace so they can be in turn redeployed and reused. And if there is, we basically go to the same manufacturers that make the mechanisms for height adjustability, i.e. sit stands, and provide remanufactured surfaces to go on top of those. So we integrate new along with reman so that we can provide a solution for the clients. Okay, so we're at 11:26 right now, so we're coming on down to the final home stretch here. Michelle, is it possible that you could bring up, I don't see another, wait, I got one more question. Hold on a second. Let's see. While I'm doing that, Michelle, if you could bring up the last slide that we're going to ask everybody to make sure they take care of on this. All right, how do we agree and bear with me, folks. I'm going through the Q&A here. Okay, what is the average percentage of cost dedicated to redesign when considering the cost of a remanufactured furniture? What percentage of cost is dedicated to redesign when considering the cost of remanufactured furniture? You want to take a stab at that, Bill?
Yes. From our standpoint, remanufacturers do different things. And I know there at Davies, you guys do a lot of what you call re-indexing and changing and cutting metal pieces down to make different sizes. We do not do a lot of that. And so the cost of redesign for us is in the raw materials it takes to transpose let's say we had a panel that came in that was fabric covered. And so a lot of times our clients, especially today, they want laminate on the outside, down the aisles of their panels. And so fabric and laminate that I have to buy cost about the same. So there's not a big difference in cost when I do things like that. We add a lot of glass. Glass is expensive, but again, obviously the customer is going to pay for that. And I'm not exactly sure about that question, but hopefully that answers some of the things that we do that increase cost to redesign something.
Perfect. I'm gonna let Patty take a quick step because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, I'll look at this from a dealership perspective. Like the actual design, the way we draw it is we draw it in new furniture, and then we're able to kind of flip it over into remanufactured goods. So there's no additional strokes on our end, and the live design does decrease the time spent on design. But if we do have to inventory and leverage, existing assets, that does create a little bit of more on-site time. But it's typically, the value and the cost avoidance by far makes up for it.
Thank you, Patty. I want to thank everybody on the panel. You guys did a phenomenal job. I'll thank Doug when I see him again. Bill Adams, Paddy Hobohm, great job. Excellent. I just want to basically make sure everybody understands that the Q&A feature, you can still post questions. We'll answer them. If you have a question after the session is over, no problem. Email it to Michelle Hayes at theremanCouncil.org. We'll get that for you. Remember, this is going to be recorded. This is being recorded. Get an email so you can access it. And last but not least, I want to thank all the attendees. Please remember to fill out your survey and tell everybody how great a job that Bill, Patty, and Doug did. Thank you so much for everything, and look forward to a wonderful year. Another Reman Day next year, Earth Day, and think Reman. And remember the sunglasses on the dog that Bill showed. It's cool. Thank you.